have to start with a drink, I'm afraid. I'm feeling emotional already from the song, and you're talking about Jenny. And I think also what I want to talk about this morning. But first, let me say thank you to Larry Pass publicly for his willingness to switch out talk dates with me so that I could go to Jenny's services last week in Albuquerque. And thank you, Larry. It was a great talk. I watched all the ones for the beginning of the month. As Bonnie said, part of my role is kind of, usually the fourth Sunday is the last Sunday, and that turned out to be last week rather than this week, so it's the fifth Sunday. But I'm here to try to help bring it all together. What I want to talk about today is wholeness, WHOLENESS, and how we get to that wholeness through healing, the whole word being another, phrase for healing. We talk, as Tina read in the reading, about being, it was your first comments this morning, about being whole, perfect, complete, that kind of thing. And we use this word whole rather universally in our teachings, the word whole, 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 whole. But I want to use it today more about how to heal through becoming whole, and that holiness and healing and reconciliation that comes through the at-one-ment, what Ernest Holmes calls the at-one-ment, written like the word atonement, but pronounced as at-one-ment, through the unification of self and the integration of our parts. And then we'll talk a little bit about what I'm learning, at any rate right now, about how we can do that integration, how we can bring ourselves whole. So the last few speakers, or what I would guess I would call the predecessors in the pulpit this month, have brought things to you that have been scientific, quantum physics, energetic aspects of how energy and vibration are a part of feeling that wholeness and feeling that oneness with spirit, that oneness being one with the whole. I want to take it inside, and a lot of what they've talked about was an internal thing, the vibrational internal vibration. But I want to take it inside to the job that needs to be done in order to reach this wholeness, healing, holiness kind of oneness with spirit. The predecessors in the pulpit, however, nobody told you or asked you the story about the joke that came to my mind when I first heard the theme for this month. So I wasn't upstaged or my thunder stolen. It's an old joke, and probably many of you have heard it, but it came to my mind when I first heard it about the theme for this month, about the Buddhist monk who goes to the hot dog stand and places his order, or maybe today it would be Burger King, where you can have it your way, right? And so, do you know what his order was? Make me one with everything. So that joke is never, ever since I heard it, I don't know, 30 years ago probably, I've never let go of it. Make me one with everything. So first I want to start, I'm like Tina, when in doubt, check Ernie out. And I think that today I'm going to talk about, this is sort of a follow-up to the talk I gave last fall about my personal 9/11 that I've been transforming my life through. I don't know if I'm transforming anybody else's, but hopefully it's all, since we're all one. And as Tina says, we are a part of the one mind and of spirit, but we're not apart from it. So Ernest says in the Science of Mind text that we often think that we require money, friends, and physical healing. And we're looking for that knowledge outside of ourselves. And some of these people that do that do well because we do need all of these things. But all people need some form of healing. Most people are unhappy, few have any realization of permanent peace. We seek fragments when the whole is actually at hand. How illogical to think that anything can be higher than its own source. The universe is a perfect, undivided whole, and healing can take place only when one is unified with it, capital I. How can anyone then be healed only in part? Let us seek wholeness above all else. I think that's part of what Tina read about today too, about that wholeness of the one mind. So back to the HOLE part of being one with the whole. Because what I learned, or what I am still learning in my own personal experience of transformation from having my own little personal meltdown last fall in what I called my personal 911, and those of you who were here heard something about it, and otherwise it doesn't really matter. Just suffice it to say that I'm going through the stuff that life hands us every once in a while, and I'm having to learn how to practice what I preach. I'm fond of saying that if you don't do the work does you. So I'm getting done a little bit. Anyway, what I've discovered is that I was looking at fragments. I was trying to put that healing together by healing this and ignoring that sort of thing. And discovering in the process that my spiritual path had to really be about embracing the whole HOLE in my whole WHOLE. So I'm here today to talk about how I'm working to integrate the whole, which is the hole in my soul, how I'm looking to heal the hole in my soul and make it one with the whole that is me, the perfect, whole, complete, individualized part of spirit on the planet here. So Ernest says that man's healing is in direct proportion to his discovery of himself and his true nature to the whole. This is just another way for me, I'm a 12-stepper. I think I've told you guys this in the past. And that's just another way of using that little cliche we have in the 12-step programs. It's an inside-out job. And what I began to understand was that in my journey of self-discovery, I was making the mistake, as we often do, of believing that there'd be some path to the eternal through the external, which is not the case. Not the case at all. And that this process of healing to wholeness has to come from within. That's so within and without, as above, so below, all of that. That it had to be me to heal. I have taught from here and from in my classes as well that I see the process as reveal, feel, deal, and heal. Whenever we're going through that stuff that the song was talking about this morning to get to higher love, the calamities or the issues that the world seems to present to us that we see around us with that external aspect, and the pain that we feel internally when something occurs that we don't want, we weren't prepared for. And in my world, excuse me, what I've perceived now, what I understand better now, is that this stuff that occurred last fall started me on the path of slipping down the slope into this hole in my soul. And that I was losing and I am probably losing still, my emotional sobriety. What I call my emotional sobriety. The abstinence from negative thinking, the abstinence from falling into the path of trying to control conditions, trying to manage circumstances, all the things that we know better in Science of Mind than to do. And yet, it seems like it was my opportunity for growth, as we say, the FOG. I won't tell you what the F part says, the F word, opportunity for growth. This is what I've been going through. And what I was doing was getting stuck in this triangle that we know about, that's the rescuer, the victim, and the perpetrator, which is just around and around and around and around, and the people and the codependency, and the people in my family and in my world are just trading places on the merry-go-round of the triangle. They're either the rescuer or the perpetrator or the victim. And I had to decide to get out of that blame game. That's what I call the blame game, is that that triangle of rescuer, perpetrator, victim, and move to higher love. Get to a place of what I call namaste up. You know, get myself up to the higher level of understanding that the God within me sees the God within everything in the whole, including my HOLE, which I wanted to, you know, beat up on myself for kind of falling into, and I know better than this. And, you know, all it does is create this separation where I know that I am a part of it all and that all of what is within me, it's just like if we take our individual psyche, our individual consciousness, our individual bodies, and we know that we are that individualized expression of spirit that Tina was reading to us about this morning, and we are whole within ourselves. So how can I be whole in myself if I'm working on this fragment or I'm seeing something out there that I'm not willing to take in or recognize as a part of me, and I think I can heal this fragment that, as Ernest referred to out there, it's not going to work. So all I was doing was making tiger butter. This is the not politically correct thing, you know, but that just chasing my own tail around and rendering myself into pretty much a useless place, trying to heal just the one part, looking for that eternal from the external, trying to make myself whole by demanding atonement from someone else, by demanding atonement from the other, instead of seeking at-one-ment within myself. That would allow me then to embrace the reality that I was facing and be able to become one with it, one with that HOLE that becomes the WHOLE when it's all aligned and integrated and made into the one again. Excuse me. And Ernest has this to say about at-one-ment that I'd like to read to you. And it speaks to me about the experience that I've been having. It says, spiritual experience is a fact. Like, get over it, huh? Spirituality may be defined as an atmosphere of good, the realization of God. It cannot and does not borrow its light from any other, no matter how great or noble that other may be. It springs from within, coming from that never-failing fountain of life which quenches every thirst, whose source is in eternity, the wellspring of self-existence. It is a revelation of the self to the self, putting one back on the track of his own self-dependence on spirit and his own at-one-ment, and it's spelled out here with the hyphens between the at-one-ment, putting one back on the track of his own self-dependence on spirit and his own at-one-ment with reality. He says, so how do we regain paradise lost, is his question. And he says, only through soul culture and by careful self-analysis. Questions like, what's my viewpoint of life? What is my relationship to the great whole to be? What do I believe about the cause in back of it all? From whence come discouragement and fear and doubt and calamity? They cannot proceed from the eternal source, the inexhaustible one, the perfect one. Therefore, they must come from my own consciousness. The truth is God, and God is free, happy, peaceful, and ever poised in his own being. So I must set myself right with the universe and find my way back to the central fire if I'm to be warmed. I must not see it as a process of self-hypnosis, but one of a gradual unfoldment of my inner self. So that's what I'm seeing. Diving deeper into the gradual unfoldment of my inner self, because the waters on top are choppy. So it's, as Sandy Scott says, it's time to dive deeper. And that's what I'm committing to do in my life, and I invite you to consider whether any of this fits for you today. Take it on. So what I'm really realizing is that in my reveal, feel, deal, heal, I was sort of a skip and a step, trying to I had the revelation after a fashion, and then I tried to jump to fix it, to take the action, to deal with it in order to heal with it. And what I was doing was stepping over the feel part, and that's why I was slipping into the HOLE. Excuse me. So I want to read you something from Courage to Change. This is a little 12-step book. It's a daily reader. And this is actually from April 1. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there today, right? Just about. And it says, moving from awareness to acceptance to action takes time. This is the triple A rather than the AA of AA. The triple A is awareness, acceptance, action. Kind of like reveal, feel, deal, heal. And moving from awareness to acceptance to action takes time, but the benefits are worth the wait. And as I learned to accept my defects, circumstances, and feelings, I learned that I'm a worthwhile human being just as I am. With that kind of self-acceptance, I can begin to see my options and slowly begin to take the action to change. And then the little reading at the bottom says, someone suggested that I stop concentrating on changing myself and think first about accepting myself. And that is indeed the place where we all need to be. There is no change that's necessary. It's more about accepting what is, that reality that Ernest was talking about in the reading that I read about accepting reality from a different perspective. So it's an opportunity for me to look at this and to recognize that I wasn't willing to feel the feelings. I wasn't willing to get through that feeling stage so that I could get to acceptance. And so the lack of acceptance just set up all this resistance, and the resistance to the feelings as well. And the next thing, I'm watching myself just sliding into the hole, into the HOLE, and then beating myself up about it, not wanting to be in the hole, not wanting to recognize the hole, but yet knowing that it's there. And I see myself, dropping back to obsessive behaviors and just avoidance and not wanting to feel the feeling. So, our physical and our emotional bodies are similar but different. And they are nonetheless integrated as well. But in the physical body, you learn your lessons as you're moving through life by the physical senses. So that if I touch this and it's a hot stove, I'm going to recoil, I'm going to pull back. And as a young child, I probably don't even know enough to know that hot stove, cold stove, any stove, what stove, So I wouldn't touch a cold one probably either, because I learned that the hot one burned me once and I will never do that again, kind of thing. And we have a tendency to translate that into our emotional bodies as well, where we won't feel the emotion because it doesn't feel good. Whoops, I'm not going there, got burned before, don't want that one. And yet what we know from our teachings here is that if we don't feel it, if we don't embody the feeling, we won't be able to really have the full spiritual path experience that we're intended to have. So we go back to that level of infancy where we're kind of protected and guarded from touching the hot stove again, or you have a bad feeling or an upset as an infant. We start right away distracting kids from their feelings. So it's no wonder we grow up and say, oh, I don't want to feel that feeling, because we were literally babied away from it in our infancy. So the baby gets, the bottle or the pacifier or a different level of hug or a distraction with a toy, and those are the ways we learn those lessons in our early life. So we become adults, and when we don't want to feel the feeling, we find some other way to evade or avoid it, is what I call it, where we'll distract ourselves from having to have the feeling. Turn on the TV, pop a beer, eat a brownie, run to the gym. If any of you can relate to any of these things as to our methods for distracting ourselves from facing the feeling and feeling the feeling. And yet dealing with the feeling and embracing it and embodying it is the only way to get to that next level of the healing. So if we want the healing, we got to reverse engineer the thing and say, okay, now I've got to sit down and feel the feeling. So how do I do that? Well, what I saw myself doing was I was trying to manage my emotions, trying to manage conditions and circumstances to avoid these anticipated feelings. Because all fear is fear of feelings. I say that again, this is my belief. All fear is truly fear of feeling. I don't want to do X, Y, or Z thing because I'm afraid of the feelings that I might have as a consequence of it. You know, many of you have said to me, gosh, I don't know how you could get up there and speak. I'm not cut out to be a public speaker. Well, if you're afraid of public speaking, it's not the public speaking that you're afraid of, it's the outcome of it. It's the fear that you have that somebody will laugh at you, or that you'll make a mistake, or you'll fall off the stage like I've done before. You know, any of these kinds of things it's that anticipated fear of the outcome, that the feelings that we'll have from it, that is actually causing us to be afraid in the moment. And then we have that hot stove past feeling that we know we don't want to go back there again. So we're still operating out of this fear of the future, pain of the past that keeps us stuck and unavailable to the present moment. So what I'm looking at now is, you know, how to get through the process at a level where I can process myself. And knowing that this is the thing that I'm stuck in, is the feeling, I'm looking at what are the possibilities for how I can do this. Well, you know, we can read more, we can learn more, we can listen more, but there's no substitute for the experiential. If I don't get it in through my body and feel it and then allow it to be felt and embraced and accepted and loved, getting to the higher love, I'm not going to have the success with it that I'd like. So what I'm practicing now is a method or a process of just sitting with it. As Eckhart Tolle would say, you know, checking into your body, seeing where you feel the feeling, where is it stuck, what does it feel like? Doesn't have to be labeled, doesn't have to be named, although specificity of where it is and what it's coming from is helpful. But to sit there with it and be present with it is a challenge for me. You guys probably do better. But I'm having a challenge with sitting with the feelings, with the anger, with the hurt, with the resentment, with the upset, with the fear of the future. All of these are parts of the things that I'm identifying that are coming through me. But the process is one of being present with it, being willing to surrender to it, which is truly difficult for me. And then to be able to love it unconditionally, to take that feeling of hurt and love it unconditionally so that I can embrace it, so that I can take it in. So instead of filling the hole, H-O-L-E, in my soul with, you know, the external stuff, I'm able to fill it now with the love, with the higher love, with the unconditional love and the willingness to embrace the feeling so that I can feel the fear and do it anyway. Then it's to integrate that into it and embody it so that it's a part of me, so that I can accept. This was seemingly a fragment out there in Ernest talking about fragments, but it really is me. And if I'm not willing to look at it, love it, embrace it, accept it, then the next action step or the dealing step is inauthentic. It won't work. It won't be the right thing in the divine order. So I have to have enough patience with this process. That's another little character defect of mine. I'm kind of impatient. I have to have enough patience with it to be able to integrate it, to embody it, so that then I can elevate it. That again is what the song's about. The song's about elevating the feeling, taking the higher ground. The Esther Hicks, you know, idea of wherever, this is written back to Randy's talk about vibration, good vibration. Get to the next highest level of good vibration that you can get yourself to. Infinitesimally small, doable increment perhaps, but nonetheless to elevate. Or David Hawkins, if you've read Power versus Force, the idea of getting to love and above, getting to higher ground, getting to higher love, is love and above, where the calibration of your vibration is at the highest level you can bring it to get above anger, resentment, hurt, upset, to love. And, you know, Reverend Candy used to teach us that if we're going to get to love anyway, let's just start out trying to be at love to begin with. So that would be helpful, I think, for all of us. To become one with the whole, H-O-L-E, so that I can have my oneness with the W-H-O-L-E that I am. And here's what Ernest has to say that I'd like to leave you with. If we would come to the universal wholeness, we must approach it through the law of its own nature, meaning we have to give it our undivided attention. And to the spiritual unit that is in back of all things, the source, that is God. Since all else is included within this, we find our particular good only coming to us through our unity with life. This conscious unity makes our mind receptive to completion, to being whole, perfect, and complete. And since life itself is complete, this perception is always the inner light. For the individual can only use such knowledge as he inwardly possesses. And in reality, we know God or truth only as we ourselves have embodied God and truth. And since it's impossible to embody anything that is outside of ourselves, this knowledge becomes our inner light. And to the degree that we embody our reality, we become poised, powerful, and whole. The whole purpose of science of mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with that material world, which appears to us to be imperfect. Only that world that can appear to us is that which we have mentally perceived. Let's change our perception and change our lives. Namaste.